Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another Big Love Season 4 review. This is episode 2, The Greater Good. If there's anything that I miss that you would like to talk about, feel free to put it down below. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of noise in the background and I'm not going to have an opportunity to record this at all because, this is it for my Big Love content this week and I got to get this out. So let's start by my thoughts. My thoughts are Bill will never be satisfied in anything. It's like he's always looking for the next thing, the next fix, the next thing to put his hands in. This is a guy who has a store and a casino and a new church and children and wives. And now you want to add something else onto your plate, which is running for Senate. This is a man who struggles to make basic decisions for himself and his own family, yet we're supposed to believe that he can make them for an entire state. I don't buy it. Bill and Dale are attending a hearing. And in this hearing, you got Roy, who I guess is a state representative. He has a problem with the UEB having a trustee. He doesn't feel like they should have a trustee. He feels like the government should be able to grab their funds, seize it, take it. He wants them bulldozed. He wants the compound gone, and he wants to take all their assets. I personally think that maybe, yes, the government may be due a certain portion of funds, especially if there is indeed welfare fraud. But there's a way to do that. It's by starting off by getting an auditor, get an audit done, get a forensic accountant, trace things, but don't sit here and just try to take over like how they often do. Because there are people like the gentleman that we saw in season 1. I think his name was Ernest. If I'm wrong, correct me down below. But the guy who had multiple wives, who sold his seat to Bill on the UEB, who basically let Bill know that he doesn't have a pot to piss in because everything has been taken after being a part of this cult for all these years. If they did it to him, they did it to everybody else. Look at Lois and look at Frank and look at how they were kicked out at one point. These people don't control their own funds. And here we are now knowing that they're in multiple states. So this is multiple states over multiple years where funds have been taken from these people because they believe that they're supposed to live a certain way. And as a result, that money is just piling up. Now, my problem is you can't sit here and say, I'm going to seize that money without making sure that the people who work really hard for those funds get those funds. If you really want to free the people, if you really want to rid the world of cults and stuff like that, then actually free the people, pour into the people, give back to the people, give them the money that they're due, the money that they earned that was taken from them. But that's not what we're going to do. Instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to take from them the same way that Roman and others before him took. Basically, Roy wants to eliminate polygamy and he wants to start with Juniper Creek. So we're on the compound. They're preparing for the prophet's funeral. Roman's in the casket. His dear wife, Adeline, is by his side, saying that she's happy that Roman is waiting on her in heaven. I've read various books on polygamy. One of the things that's said is that the husband can call the lady up. So my question is, does she feel like she's the only person that's going to get called up? Because there's a whole bunch of other wives that are probably waiting too. What is that looking like? I don't know. Which makes me question if she still believes in this, or if it's just an act, because I never know with her. As he's being rolled out to the hearse, we hear a news broadcast. It says Roman died in Mexico as a fugitive and that his body was taken back in a refrigerated truck to the compound grounds. This is when we find out that they have grounds in Mexico, Canada, Kansas, and Montana. Sounds like a great way to cover it up. Sounds like Joey could possibly have gotten away with this crime. But there's only one problem, which is that we learn later on that JJ saw Joey the night that Roman was unalived, the night that Roman went missing, leaving the big house. So he hasn't gotten away with it. But my question is, if you saw Joey, did you see Adeline? Did you help Adeline? Like, how was she able to move that body to the cellar? There's things here that we just don't know. So we're back where Bill and crew are. He comes home to a banker's box sitting on the table, which contains his file and all the research that both Ray and the FBI have done when it comes to Bill and Nikki, to his family. The papers are stamped, and on the papers it says case closed. As he's looking at this, you got JJ and Nikki going at it again, this time over the vaccinations and files. During a family lunch, Bill talks about how the representative Roy is coming after polygamists and coming after them, calling for the destruction of polygamy. And he thinks that it's going to tear families apart. He says someone has to stand for the principle. Someone has to fight for it. Sarah reminds him, you're sitting here and you're saying someone has to fight for it. And you're saying it like you want to be the one to fight when you're a polygamist yourself. And then he surprises the family with his next idea, claiming that he wants to run against Roy for the Senate. He believes that he received a revelation from Heavenly Father to serve. Like Margene points out later on, Bill believed that he received a revelation that Anna was meant to be in their family, that Anna was their fourth. So how accurate are his so-called revelations? Is giving very much so when Adeline told Roman that his revelations have been off lately. Bill, your revelations are off, and you're calling it a revelation when really it's your ego and it's your mind telling you that this is what you want to do, when I don't really think that you're taking time to consult with the Heavenly Father. So Barb and Margene are immediately against this whole thing. They don't like the idea because it will expose their family. People will know they're polygamous. While Nikki, on the other hand, thinks that Bill has a calling. She thinks that, his wires just got crossed because he's talking about Senate, but what he really needs to be focused upon is becoming the new prophet. This, to me, is a perfect example of how people in this community, how people in these cults often push their agendas and then label them as a testimony, because here she is doing the same thing that her mother did, which is you heard the man say something and you're going to piggyback on it like you were given that same revelation. She says, you should take place as the next prophet in Juniper Creek. Margie is like me, and she's thinking that these people are nuts. She says, we just opened a casino. I just started a business, and we're just getting back on track as a family. She's referring to Nikki. What do we look like sitting here and now doing this? Because he hates when people don't agree with him. Hello, Cody. He hates when people don't say, yes, you're right, we're going to do it. Hello, Bald Eagle. He says he wasn't looking for an argument. This isn't an argument. This is these women telling you their opinions. But Margene points out something else. Margene is on it. I think I'm going to like Margene the most this season out of the wives. And she says, he wasn't really asking our opinion though, was he? And he wasn't. Bill is an army of one. Bill does not worry about the others unless he needs their help, unless he needs their input, unless he needs their abilities, right? Margene, I need you to show us some skin and entice Jerry. Be friendly and naive. Nikki, I don't need you to do anything because you're too harsh. Barb, I need you to be the person on my arm because you can command a room and talk to certain people. It's always what he needs for them to do. He's maneuvering these pieces the way that he feels like he needs to maneuver them, right? He does not worry about the others unless he needs their help, as I said. And he's that same way in business when it comes to how he operates with Dawn, by telling Dawn we're going to do this, by saying to Dawn we're going to do that, when if you really pay attention to it, Dawn is a lot more qualified than Bill. That happens a lot in these jobs, right? Anyways, he's a lot more qualified than Bill. Yet Bill often treats Dawn like he's less than him. As I said in a previous episode, and I think I'm going to say it in every last one of these episodes, I don't like Bill. So let's talk about Sarah and Scott. Sarah comes home to let Scott, or to Scott's house, because she's not there yet, to let him know that her father has had yet another revelation. Meaning, like, here he goes again, telling us that he got another testimony, another epiphany. Like, this is just what he does. She says this time he's saying that he wants to run for political office. Scott's like, what is in the water over there? And I want to know that too. Or better yet, what is in the air? Because I think oftentimes Bill is smoking. He's smoking something, because why is it that you keep pulling this stuff out the sky and just thinking everybody's supposed to go with it? So, Scott and Sarah decide that they don't want to wait to get married. The plan is that they're going to go to the Justice of the Peace. He said it'll take a day to get the license and everything straight, but that's what we should do. She agrees. She's all excited because she can't wait to be married. We then see Sarah pop up at her old job to ask Heather, who's in town from school or in the area from school, if she's asking Heather, who she clearly hasn't spoken to since their fallout, if she'll be a part of, their wedding. She tells her that she's getting married and that she wants her to please be a witness and come to her wedding. She lets her know that, Heather, you were right. I was selfish. I am sorry. And then, Heather's like, congratulations. And she goes to pull off, but then she hurries up and puts the car back in reverse. And she's like, look, I'm not leaving this driveway. I don't work here anymore. I can sit here as long as I want to. I'm not leaving this driveway until I get a yes from you, because I can't imagine moving forward without you. And Heather says yes, and we see them hug. And then we see later on, while they're all at dinner, where Sarah asks for Ben to be a witness as well. Does Scott not have any friends? I'm just wondering. Anyways, so the wives have yet another meeting. This time, Barb is complaining about the price of paper goods and telling Nikki that instead of going to this place, she ought to go to this place. Well, Nikki's like, look, I was rushing. I was just trying to hurry up and go there. I'll go to the other place next time. Margina's looking at her like, we're sitting here and we're talking about paper goods, trying to put our heads in the sand when we have bigger things to talk about, like the fact that Bill has made this decision that he's possibly going to try to run for office and how it's going to affect us. We're not talking about how it's going to affect us, like how my business will go away. She then puts money on the table. I don't know if she's trying to bribe them here, but of course, Nikki grabs it and quickly puts it in her purse while Barbara's trying to dismiss it, acting like she doesn't want it. And Nikki's like, I always, wanted Bill to be a prophet. I feel like it's his destiny, where Margina is just trying to make sure that they're not going the election route. We see Bill talking to the trustee Dale. Why is he so involved in this? He's really, really inserting himself. Anyway, so he's talking to him about what he wants for Juniper Creek. And Dale's like, I don't want to do too much. I just want to monitor certain things. I don't want to do all of that. Sorry, my back is hurting. So, he talks about how Bill does that. He just wants Juniper Creek to be a place that has like schools and clinics and services and, be the very thing that it was meant to be, while Dale is just trying to make sure that he manages their money. He doesn't want to create any issues or step out and do things that they themselves weren't planning to do. Albie walks in, sees them talking, and then leaves. We see Margine later on. She's having relations with her husband while talking about all the things and how this isn't good, very much so killing the vibe. She says, sometimes, because he's like, I know you got, a message, but sometimes Heavenly Father's messages are cloudy. Didn't Heavenly Father tell you something about Anna and how, Anna was supposed to be good for us? And, what happens if this makes us lose Home Plus? All valid things. He is done. She's like, I didn't finish. Meaning we can keep going. I'll be quiet. Next day, Nikki is digging in the recycling bin because she is looking for information about Margine's business. she is digging in there and she finds something, some statement or something that shows how much money Margene is making in her business. People in this day and age, and even back then, shred those documents. If you don't shred them, rip them up in a whole bunch of pieces, black out some things, ink some things. But people are literally doing any and everything to get information now. It's getting ridiculous. So the fact that you left this whole entire document in the recycling bin that tells all your business, be more vigilant. Anyways, so she opens this thing, she sees it, and she shows it to Barb, and Barb is shocked at the amount. We don't know it then, we learn it later. And she's like, you need to talk to Bill about this. Why don't you? Why does Barb always have to do something, or Margene always have to do something? Like, when is Nikki just going to say things on her own? I get sometimes Barb is meant to feel like she's leading everybody, but how about you go around Barb and just say what you got to say sometimes, instead of making it seem like you're playing the whole middle? Just my opinion, y'all tell me yours. So we later see Bill ask Margene how much money she's making off of her business, and she takes a while to say it. She starts talking about, the joy that the job has brought her back into her life, which she does. She was going through a little bit of depression and tired of being at home with the kids and things of that nature. And now she's getting the best of both worlds. And she said, I just wake up sometimes, might be 5 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have an idea and I jot it down. And she's like, you gave me $10,000 for seed money, and I'm going to have that back. I'm going to have it to give it back to you real soon. So she's talking in circles. Long story short, in a month, she's made, I think she said like $9,400. So she's projected to make over 6 figures before the year is out in profit. Not her divvying out things to her partner and the workers, or VSN, but her profit. So he immediately was like, yeah, that needs to go in the community pot. And she said, oh, no, I don't think so. Smart girl. She said, you're not going to do me like the Browns. You're not going to do me the way Cody did Janelle, Christine, and Mary. You're not going to do me like that. Show me my lawyer, honey. We're going to get accountants and money managers and lawyers to work with this thing. And okay, she didn't mention the Browns, but she did mention those other things. And I agree. Put them in place so that your money isn't intermingled with these people the way that it is, where he could just do whatever he wants to do with it. And then when you, or if you're ready to leave, you can't go anywhere because you don't have anything to help you out. So Barb lets Nikki know the reason why Bill now feels like he's in a position where he can do this, because they're not vulnerable to exposure, because Ray delivered their files this morning, files that he's been keeping on them and Nikki. Nikki looks disappointed. Barb says the prosecution is over and he's leaving town. It's over, Nikki. And it's something about her saying it's over, Nikki, that prompts Nikki to go to his house and to go and see him. Were we missing something here? How did she know where he lived? Had she been over there before? I'm not saying you can't look it up, but she quickly got over there and she thanked him, and it's clear he's a mess. And she's talking about, how it's been a struggle for her these last weeks, but she wants to thank him for being out there, for being close by. And he's looking at her like she's crazy. He's like, I wasn't close by. I was, trying to prosecute you. So he's like, don't show up here all all doe-eyed and wide-eyed, like thinking that we're going to have some type of reunion. My job is now at a dead end, and I have to move 3 states away because you ruined my life. And that is the thing that I don't like, that I think that they're all missing, is that the part, especially Bill and Nikki, y'all played in Adeline, but she don't care. You played a major part in damaging a lot of lives. Kathleen lost her life. That's still on them to me. And he felt for her hard, and he didn't see her for who she was. And even though he supposedly was trying to prosecute, he wasn't doing his due diligence, because you could have got Nikki alone on the fact that she presented herself as Margene, even though her name was Nikki. You didn't want to prosecute her. You were mad, you were hurt, but you didn't push it like you could have pushed it. That's just my opinion. You guys tell me yours. So she tells him that she did all of this because her father father told her to, that he was her prophet and she had to obey the prophet. And, he's like, okay, well, I hear what you're saying, but bottom line is now, you're going to have to find another beacon of light, and it's not going to be me. And she tells him, nothing makes sense for her, how she is hurting, how she's had feelings for him that she's never had. Well, she didn't say for him. She said feelings that she's never had, implying that it's for him. And he tells her to go ahead and stuff him back in the bottom. And that was deep. And it just goes to show you that Nikki never has been in love with Bill. Nikki very much so did what she was supposed to do. I think Bill was the lesser of two evils. I think that JJ put that girl through a lot. There's still a lot that we don't know. I think that it says a lot that Nikki still hasn't told us a whole bunch. I don't understand why we didn't get to see a conversation with Barb and them and him and Bill and Nikki about what happened with her dynamic with her daughter. We know some things. We can allude to certain things. We can say that based on the conversations that the last time that she saw her was when she was 2 and all those other things. But what did he do that granted you to be unsealed? And what exactly did he say that made you not pursue getting your daughter? It's just so much more that they could have spoken about rather than this crazy roller coaster ride that we're about to go on with Bill being trying to run for Senate. The casino. So Barb is at the casino in place of Bill right now. When Thomas comes in, tells her, like, look, if you got something you want to say to me, just say it to me instead of sending these memos. I'm sure that those memos were very condescending, very passive aggressive, because she just seems like she's that type of person. So he tells her that he's going to walk the perimeter to make sure that there's no new dead bodies, meaning that at some point Bill had a conversation with them saying that there was a dead body there, letting them know it didn't have anything to do with them. He goes back to his office and he's looking at her and he's doing like this. I don't know how to completely feel about Thomas, but I like him more than his father because he's calling out the crap that he sees. So Nikki's at the house. She just finished seeing Ray, and I should have watched it again because I'm not sure if he caught on that it was Ray or JJ. Anyways, so she's looking all sad on the bed, and he can tell something's wrong. And then the next thing you know, the subject of JJ comes up, and he tells her he's coming by for dinner, and she will be there. It's always a demand. It's always, I said this, you do this. It's never, let's talk about this first. And they all do it, but Bill's the worst one. So Barb is trying to push her agenda on Sarah. We see Nikki telling her as she's about to go up to let Sarah know that the till death do you part thing will be the loneliest, most horrible moment in her life. No, because when you're in love with someone, the thought of death is hurting more than the thought of you being with them for the rest of your life. But Nikki, you're not in love. You don't seem to like a lot of your life. So Barb brings Sarah her old dress. She says, you can still be sealed, even though you don't believe in the principle and your father can do it without a sealing, or eternal marriage, this is all that there is. And Sarah's like, what's wrong with this? I just want Barb to leave Sarah alone because it's clear that Sarah just doesn't want to be bothered with them. So later on, we see that Sarah and Heather are about to leave for the wedding at the courthouse. Barb enters the house as they're coming down the stairs. She sees Sarah wearing her dress. She sees Heather dressed all up. Heather looks good. Heather came back looking like she actually went away to college. I remember that went away to college, can't come back look. Everybody told me how much more mature I looked and all those other things. Heather very much so is giving that to me. She looks beautiful. She was pretty before, but she just looks mature to me. And I don't know if they did that intentionally or if she was really like college age when all this stuff went on, but you could tell that, there's a difference in her. So Sarah tells her mom that she's, doing it the way that she wants to do it, that she's going to the courthouse, and Barb begins crying, it's not right. This is not a real marriage. It's not a real marriage, Sarah. A courthouse marriage is nothing but a piece of paper. And I don't agree with Barb and what she's saying, but Barb always thinks she knows all. Hello, Robin. Hello, little birdie. She always thinks that she knows everything. There are a lot of people who have court marriages who last a lot longer than some of the people who have marriages in the church. If you decide to put God as the head of your marriage, and that's what your faith is, and it works, great. But don't knock people because they don't do things the way that you expect them to do things. I know atheists that are married. I have some atheist friends that are married. And despite our differences in opinion, their marriage is beautiful. Is their marriage less than somebody else's because they may not have the same beliefs? No, not in my opinion. And it's okay if you disagree. That's fine. But it's not our place to judge somebody else's marriage because they didn't do the ceremonial things that we feel like they're supposed to do. But once again, Barb feels like it's her way or nobody else's way. So Sarah leaves telling her mom, like, we're going to do this the way that we want to do this, the way that Scott and I want to do this. But it's clear that even though she wants to do it a certain way, she's still considering her mom because later on, after that discussion with her mother, she's struggling as she's sitting in the car, eating a bunch of fast food, putting off going to the courthouse. So we see Bill and Barb talk to Cindy and Ted. I personally wouldn't have came over there after all this transpired between them, but they're talking. And he's asking like if he would be able to run and what Ted thinks and if it's going to work. And Ted's like, it's not going to work. Barb is like, well, first of all, who knows about our excommunication? So Cindy's like, a handful of family, no. She's like, about the excommunication or about polygamy or like what? And she's like, both. Ted says, look, you got bigger problems than whether or not you've been excommunicated. Like the fact that you got 3 kids. We're looking down on them only having 3 kids. Is that what we're doing here? Because you can't claim the others. Bill hears all of this and is like, okay. He gets on my nerves, but he's not completely foolish because he knows that a Mormon vote in that area is major. And if they could get the Mormons on his side, that he could possibly get this, and he needs the vote. So to make sure his image is good and that he could have the support, Bill and Barb go to the church to have a meeting with one of the bishops, I'm assuming, claiming that they're asking for forgiveness for their transgressions and they want to be found worthy and they want to know what they need to do. So with Barb's help, her and Bill are lying to the church, basically trying to act like they're monogamous and they want to be back in good standing. So he's told, you're going to have to attend church meetings. I'm going to have to come and talk to you guys about certain things. You can't offer prayer. You can't take sacrament. You can't give church. You can't pray. I can't pray. I'm in church with y'all and I can't pray. I can't say, let us say a word of prayer. What? Either way, my opinion, Barb and Bill are full of crap because they come out of there acting like, they're these people who are changing back to who they were. Barb is acting like she's bothered by this whole thing about them lying and she doesn't want to do this. But are you really? Because you're sitting here and you didn't hesitate to do it right in front of the man's face and act like, you want to do this. So they're talking about public service and how at the beginning of their marriage, this is what they wanted to do. And Barb was like, yeah, we wanted to do that 3 marriages ago. I'm not sure if that's something that we could do now. That's fair. I'm not sure if it's something y'all could do either. So JJ comes over for dinner. His wife Melinda is there. She's battling cancer. I guess that was the same lady we saw earlier, but this time she has on a wig. They talk about Kansas and the expenses. And JJ's like, look, you're trying to ask about Kansas. It's separate from Juniper Creek. We run on our own thing there. But, whatever you want to know, you could just ask him. And Nikki's like, oh, have you been found, not guilty of the charges that you're facing there? I want to know more about the charges. I can't remember if I missed it or not. It's very uncomfortable, right? So Bill wants to know more. He's saying you could ask me more, but when Bill gets up from the table, he tells Nikki that you need to tell your husband to stay out the business of Kansas. Like that's not a place that he wants to go. Dinner is tense, as I said. Barb is talking in the kitchen with Margene because she can't get over how his wife has cancer and she's dealing with it on the compound, and she's talking about how her wig looks and all these other things. Barb, it's always surface level. Like, let's focus on one thing at a time, which is the fact that she's battling cancer on the compound. Hopefully they're taking her to other doctors and she's getting whatever help that she needs. So Nikki isn't trying to be pleasant. She then surprises the family, shocks the family by talking about how she's not going to go to Roman's memorial, his funeral, his whatever it is. Back upstairs, Kara is in her room, like taking the sheets off the bed, and she's struggling because she's confused. She said that she doesn't understand this place, that they don't follow the rules, that Nikki and all the wives talk back to Bill, and she doesn't understand it because in their belief system, the men is the priest and they're not supposed to do that. Nikki admits that she's confused. She doesn't know what to say. She's confused. She doesn't know what to believe. And this is when we realize that so is her daughter. And that her daughter is brainwashed based on the things that she says. So Nikki is downstairs scrubbing the mess out of dishes. And she's talking to Bill. And she's like, this is your destiny. Since you were a little boy, I remember the glow that used to be around you and that people saw it and that you had this light since you were a little boy and you're supposed to be the prophet. And Bill, if you're not the prophet, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what our marriage is going to do. And Bill's like, look, you're not going to do that to me. I don't want to be the prophet. So we see Joey and Wanda are back. Wanda isn't feeling it, especially because of the fact that they put that whole story in the paper saying that, he died in Mexico and he didn't. It makes me wonder if Joey told Wanda the whole thing. But he tells her there's work to be done. So it's the next day, I believe. Adeline comes to see Nikki with her sister. She's like, I heard that you're not coming to the funeral. Why are you shaming me? Why are you shaming the family? And Nikki tells her mom that she doesn't believe that her father was a true prophet. She feels like he was a false prophet. So she doesn't want to go. She's like, he put me in the joy book. He married me to JJ. He didn't love me. I was nothing but number 8 to him. And her sister's like, that's what he was taught. That's how he was brought up. And I want to know what her point is. At what point do you utilize your own brain and see that, there's something about this that isn't right? I am not completely knocking those ladies who were in this thing and they didn't know any better. But Nikki has now been aware of life outside of the compound, and she's been exposed to things that maybe her siblings and her mother haven't. And she owes it to herself to do her own studying to show herself approved, to figure out things for herself, because things that the prophet said has already been deemed to be false. 126, he was 70 something and he's gone. Her mother tells her that if she doesn't go, if you don't go to your father's funeral, I will not forgive you. You will die a bitter orphan with a heart of stone. Nikki's like, I don't have a heart of stone. I am a warm person. I do not have a heart of stone. And Nikki is stoic at times. She's rigid at times, but I agree. She doesn't have a heart of stone. So her sister's like, I'm with mom on this one. I personally am not. I do not feel like Nikki is obligated to do anything for anyone else. I personally have had discussions like this with my mom before. I remember when my aunt that raised me passed, and my mother got really, really upset with me because I refused to go to her funeral. And it wasn't because I didn't want to pay my respects, but it was because it was just too heavy for me. Like, that particular aunt was a second mother to me. And in her last days, my auntie that, would tuck me in, that I lived with her and her husband at one period in time, that was there for me, that was the person that I went to when things were done to me and I needed to tell an adult, that auntie passed. So If that aunt passed and that aunt who I'm calling on FaceTime doesn't want to get on FaceTime with me and answers the phone and has it laying down on the bed, just letting me hear her voice because she doesn't want to see how small she's gotten from the chemo, then I couldn't mentally go there. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. It's been almost 2 years. I do not regret not going to that funeral because that's what helped me. So if for her, not going is how she copes, or not going is her way of dealing with the anger and frustration that she has towards her father, I'm rambling, you guys, sorry. So be it. Don't force people to do things that they don't want to do, and don't guilt them. Now, at that same point, I can understand there are people who may not want to, go to funerals or see certain things, and they may later regret it. I'm not, knocking that. I'm just saying allow people to figure out what they want to do without the extra pressure sometimes, because the extra pressure tends to be noise, and sometimes you just got to tune out the noise. I hope that makes sense, because I really just did a whole circle with that. That's why I got to focus on my notes. Dale has a meeting with other men who like men. They're trying to suppress their feelings. I think that this is unfortunate. Albie shows up. Dale says, as they leave the meeting, that they suffered the fall together, and he's trying to be good for his wife and his kids, meaning he's married with kids. They kiss. And they kiss again, and then he pulls away, and he's like, you can't do that, and he runs off. I think that it's messed up that these men are living a double life, because it's clear that they don't want their wives, and they're doing a disservice to their wives and their kids by having a double life behind them. But I also feel like it's because they've been guilted into feeling like they can't be who they want to be, or who they are, which is men that want other men. Joey later sees Bill because he shows up at the church, hugs him, tells him, you're supposed to be the next prophet. Grandfather's calling his bills, hands him his grandfather's material, says that there's 10,000 souls that need him, while Bill is trying to tell him he's not doing that. He's like, you don't want to do it, but here you are building a church when you already got a church. He's trying to convince him that he needs to be the prophet. Bill isn't interested in the position. He then brings up Kathy's death and how it didn't happen for any reason. And Bill says, no, Kathy's death happened because of a murder. And Heavenly Father will deal with murderers in his own time. So my question is, does Bill not feel like he too is a murderer? Maybe he didn't pull the trigger or chase her down, but he set things into motion by playing the part that he often plays, which is stirring the pot, sharing information. Like, he also is part of the reason why Roman got shot. Like, he has a way of doing stuff and finding a way to weasel his way out. Wanda gets a visit from JJ, alluding to the fact that he knows, as I said, that Joey did something to Roman. Talking about how it's interesting that Roman went missing shortly after Joey went missing, that he called around to Mexico. Nobody saw Roman out there, and Roman returns and then they return. Something about that is fishy to him. And he's like, don't forget, I have something that's very precious and dear to you. I want to know what it is. So Marge is talking her to Nikki. They're both scared about going public. Nikki that is then asked if she's in love with Bill, and she says she doesn't know. We see Don show up to Bill's, all excited to give him a hat that basically, I can't remember if it said Henriksen, whatever, but it's basically like if he's running. And he says he has doubts. He tells, him he has doubts. And he's like, no one wants to follow me. And Don says, you had a testimony, and a testimony is true by the peace that it gives you. Are you feeling any peace? And he says, no. So you're not feeling any peace. He said, it's a testimony by the peace that it gives you. And yet here you are, and you're going to do it anyway. You're doing it for self. So Sarah tells her father she was going to get married today. She explains that she's telling him because she didn't know if she could go through it. But she's found, strength, and I can't remember if she said in him or she referred to something with him, talking about how Her father took them into polygamy. Even though she didn't like it, he still did it because that was a conviction that he had. And he's like, yeah, it was a conviction that I had. But even with the conviction, sometimes you still end up hurting the ones you love, because not only did he hurt Barb, but he hurt his kids. He says it takes long to heal, and it sometimes you lose people forever. I wonder if he's going to lose his daughter, because something tells me now that Sarah's married, she's going to back away from this family. So she said she was wrong for trying to hide her wedding because she didn't know how, to hide her beliefs. And she's like, I don't want to hide it. It just is what it is. So Bill is bothered, but he understands that, his daughter doesn't want to follow his lifestyle. And she came to this route partially because of the things that he's done. So we see the funeral. Everybody's singing. The singing was beautiful. Nikki and her daughter do attend. That night, Bill tells all the wives that he will be running for Senate. And after he is elected, he will reveal that they are polygamous. So they got 6 weeks to kind of keep it under wraps. And then they can hopefully reveal it and be okay with their lives. Bill surprises his wife Barb by saying the second thing is this, and Sarah is wearing her dress, and her and Scott are married in the backyard. It's very much so giving that Scott's doing this for Sarah, because Scott ain't down with them, and I don't blame Scott. They're officially married, and there's an officiant there. So I think it was like a compromise where we're doing it in the backyard here where you can witness it, but we still want somebody else to do it. And that's the end. I noticed that Nikki is crying, like tears are coming down and her lip is trembling. I don't know if it's because she's seeing the love between these two that she didn't have, or if it's a combination of that and her dad. If there's something that I left out that you want to talk about, feel free to put it down below. Until next time.